9 spine-chilling Burger King nightmares, terrifying encounters exposed from the haunted shift. In the heart of Maplewood, the last Burger King stood like a beacon in the night, its golden arches casting ghastly shadows on cracked pavement. Sarah, a weary single mother of 2, arrived for her first solo night shift, every creak of the building sending shivers down her spine. The fryer gurgled ominously, accompanied by the eerie silence that seemed to scream beneath the flickering fluorescent lights above her head. She took a deep breath, trying to shake off the discomfort. "Just overthinking it," she muttered, a brittle smile forming. The thin walls were saturated with whispers of past laughter, echoes that felt like phantoms clinging to her as she punched in her code. After the dinner rush, the restaurant morphed into an abyss, shadows bending and stretching against the stark linoleum. Every corner felt alive, a witness to her mounting fear. Anxiety gripped her as the lights overhead flickered in sync with her racing heart. Then it happened. The drive-through speaker crackled to life, the static breaking the silence, sending prickles down her arms. A monotone voice resonated through the empty space. Sarah, her blood ran cold as she looked up, locking eyes with a stranger at the window. He wore a disconcerting grin, his eyes glinting with a familiarity that made her skin crawl. "Large fries and a double Whopper, right?" he asked, his voice slicing through the veil of light and darkness. As the weeks dragged on, he returned, night after night, always ordering the same oversized meal. Each time, his questions grew more invasive, his gaze lingering too long on the small photos of her children on her phone, their smiling faces haunting her. "Your kids look just like you," he said one night, the compliment dripping with an unsettling undertone. Panic bubbled deep within Sarah's chest, but exhaustion pushed her to brush off her fear. But her children began waking up in the night, whispering tales of shadows that watched them from the corners, familiar figures lurking just beyond their dreams. Their nightmares dripped down like icicles, piercing her heart with a dread that seemed to thicken the air around her. She felt the creeping weight of something terrible, as though the walls themselves were drawing her into their history, dragging her into a hidden trauma she could not escape. Every late shift, she spotted him outside the restaurant, feigning casualness as darkness clung to him like a cloak. Sarah's unease shifted to outright dread. This was no coincidence. Whispers in the air grew louder now, voices of previous workers echoing her own growing fears. Were they cautioning her? The uneasiness was a pulse within her, rapid and relentless. The drive-through speaker crackled once more, static piercing her thoughts. "You need to know the truth about Maplewood, Sarah. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue with the clock ticking ominously. Dread surged through her body as she glanced at the nearby graveyard, its headstones poking like crooked teeth through the misty night air. The memories, the trauma buried beneath those stones seemed to tether her. Shadows twisted around the drive-through speaker like they were alive. She was inches away from something dark, ominous, and powerful. Terror thundered in her ears as she paced, clutching her phone, readying herself for a confrontation far darker than she could ever have imagined. The man's face loomed larger in her mind, every drop of fear absorbed through her skin. The drive-through speaker crackled once more as the voice echoed, "Are you ready to face the darkness, Sarah?" Her heart raced. What lay in wait? What horrors had she stepped into? She took a shaky breath. It was time to confront more than just the shadows lurking outside. The night deepened, shrouded in an oppressive darkness that squelched every sound, amplifying Sarah's isolation. Her heartbeat reverberated in her chest, loud and frantic. She ventured toward the drive-through window, the air thick with unease. As she pulled the window open, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of eyes boring into her, hidden in the void. "Are you there, Sarah?" came the voice again, so close yet distorted, as if it slipped through the cracks of reality itself. Fear gripped her as she scanned the fog-laden parking lot, searching for that sinister figure. But all she saw was darkness, pooling in corners, rolling like smoke. "Who are you?" Her voice trembled, the confidence she sought collapsing into desperation. There was only silence at first, a silence that churned and swirled around her, suffocating, until the speaker crackled to life once more. "I'm the one who knows." The voice curled around her like a serpent, hissing secrets that clawed at the edges of her mind. "The truth you skimp from, the death that lingers." Shivers chased each other down her spine. What death? What truth? Her pulse quickened as she felt the urge to retreat, but her feet remained rooted to the floor. She had come too far. She needed to know. "Tell me." She shouted into the void, her breath hitching. "What do you want from me?" A flicker of movement caught her eye. The man, his smile, horrific yet familiar, stood at the edge of the drive-thru, just beyond illumination. He was closer than she thought, an apparition cloaked in nightshade. "Your children," he said, tilting his head a little too far, an unreadable delight glimmering in his eyes. "They are the key, the link to the past." Panic flooded through her veins like ice. Memories swam up in her mind, stories her grandmother told her as a child about Maplewood's dark history, of lives entwined with shadows, of children lost beneath the watchful gaze of a hidden menace. His words festered in her mind, each syllable dripping with dread. "You're lying." She spat, her voice echoing against the empty walls, attempting to push the terror from her chest. "You're just some creep. Leave my family alone." "Am I, Sarah?" He stepped closer, crossing the waning light like a wraith. Shadows seemed to peel back from him, swirling away like frightened ghosts. "Your watchful eyes can't even grasp what lurks beneath. The odd sounds your children hear, they're warning you. The shadows are not just watching, they're waiting." Panic morphed into terror as a realization sank in. It wasn't just her fear that had consumed her, it was the environment itself, a sinister force woven into the air she breathed. The past clawed into her present, demanding her attention. "What do you want?" she repeated, her voice cracking under the strain. "Come find me," he whispered, leaning closer so that she could almost taste his menace. "I have things to reveal, truths unlocked only when you face the hauntings of Maplewood." The voice faded into the night, leaving her with a heavy silence and an unspeakable dread. With trembling hands, Sarah closed the drive-thru window, barricading herself from the shadows creeping closer. She took a deep breath. The realization dawned on her: to protect her kids, she had to confront whatever darkness loomed over Maplewood. There was no running now, but the thought of that choice twisted in her gut. What if facing this darkness meant losing everything she held dear? As she glanced back outside, the darkness pulsed and throbbed as if alive, and the whispers began again, lacing through her thoughts. What if it knows? What if it already has you in its clutches? The reflection in the window showed her own terrified eyes blinking back at her. There was no escape from the intersection of her nightmares and reality. And as the clock continued its relentless ticking, she prepared herself. To seek the truth would mean navigating through a horror that was much more than just an old tale. But was she ready to unearth something that may bury her alive? Panic clawed at Sarah's throat as she leaned back against the cold drive-thru window. The faded shadows of the parking lot loomed larger, as if the spectral diner itself were a beast awakening from slumber. Her heart drummed wildly. "I can't do this," she whispered to herself, but deep down, she knew she had to try. The air thickened with an unsettling stillness, and she could almost sense the moment the darkness shifted. Out in the fog, fleeting glimpses of movement flickered, an unnatural dance inviting her closer, yet a primal instinct urged her to flee. With shaky hands, she grabbed her phone, its dim light piercing the blackness in front of her. "Focus, Sarah. You need to call someone," she muttered, but her fingers faltered over the screen. The last person she wanted to burden was her husband, Tom. What could she tell him? That some ghost demon was stalking their family? That the very air in Maplewood was saturated with dread? She felt sick at the thought, and then, like an executioner wielding a guillotine, a noise sliced through her thoughts, a child's laughter ringing out from nowhere, sweet, yet utterly wrong. It was all wrong. The hair on her arms stood on end as she instinctively turned toward the sound. "Oliver, Ava!" she called, her voice trembling. No answer. Panic ballooned in her chest. She darted away from the window and into the little hallway that led to the employee area, her breathing jagged and ragged. The industrial lights flickered ominously above her, a grotesque flashing that mimicked her rising anxiety. "Please, don't be playing around," she hissed, struggling to keep her voice steady. Time became fluid, every second stretching into an eternity. Finally, sprinting to the back door, she pushed it open only to be greeted by an unsettling quiet outside. The whole world felt too still. The main parking lot lay deserted, and the building behind her felt like a tomb. But there, hovering near the dumpsters, shadows moved again. Not just one, but several, undulating shapes that draped over each other like morbid puppets. Fear gripped her heart as the laughter morphed, echoing from the shadows, twisting into something sinister. It moistly sank into her thoughts. The voice was childlike but layered with an echo that dripped with malice. "Sarah! Sarah, come play with us," it chimed, the taunting lilt multiplying, reverberating off the walls. Clenching her fists, she took a step backwards, her breath quickening. "No!" she screamed, a burst of defiance breaking the fragile quiet. "Leave my children alone." And then, she turned back, her instincts screaming at her to escape, to flee from the shadow's endless reach, yet a tug deep inside her, a connection she refused to give in to, whispered that she must confront this. She had to confront him. The man with the haunting smile. The figure waiting at the precipice of her family's demise. "Stop!" she shouted once more, straining against the sickening pull of the darkness. "I will find you." Then, inexplicably, the shadows halted, their sinister laughter evaporating into silence, as something else slithered into the gaps they left behind. A flat, rasping whisper rolled out like smoke, "You'll wish you hadn't tea." The world shrank around her as fear twisted into her stomach, knotting like a snake ready to strike. Sarah's heart raced as she turned on her heel, propelled by instinct, sprinting back through the drive-thru. She didn't know where she would go, only that she couldn't stay there, but fast as her feet could carry her, she couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness followed each footfall, echoing behind her, as if the shadows themselves had legs and lungs, straining to seize her. Suddenly, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. She ripped it out, eyes darting at the unread notification. The screen flickered with a haunting message she never wanted to see. It read, "They are watching you. You're not alone anymore." The realization struck hard. Her children might not be safe, but were they ever really safe to begin with? As she reached the door to the front of the building, the windows rattled, and a low growl reverberated throughout, quaking the very ground beneath her feet. What was once a safe space was now a nest of shadows. Was she ready to confront the darkness in front of her? Her breath caught in her throat. An even deeper dread loomed in her mind. What if the shadows were only the beginning? Sarah burst through the door and into the dimly lit dining area, her heart racing. She scanned the empty tables, the ghostly silhouettes of stools, and the remnants of half-eaten meals, a scene frozen in time. The soft hum of the ceiling fan above was the only sound, a dreary contrast to the chaos swirling inside her. "Oliver! Ava!" she called out, her voice trembling on the edge of panic. Silence answered back, thick and suffocating. Each second stretched. The silence narrowed her thoughts until her brain felt like a ticking clock, each tick a reminder of her children's absence. The interior lights flickered again, sending anxious shadows skittering along the walls. "Where are you?" she whispered, her voice a fragile thread of hope. She moved further inside, stepping over yellowed fast food wrappers that crunched beneath her feet. The smell of stale food nauseated her as she pushed toward the back of the diner. Shadows loomed in corners, dancing just out of reach, almost accusing her of the retreat she'd taken moments before. With each step, the laughter rang again, slicing through her resolve. Sarah, come play. A pit formed in her stomach, dread curling tight. It was different now, more insistent, more real. She rounded the counter, her instincts buzzing like a live wire. Behind the friars, the air grew thick and heavy. Something primal within her screamed to leave, to run, yet in her core, she knew she must find them. Then, from the depths of the kitchen, she caught sight of a flicker of movement. Heart pounding, she edged forward, her breath hitching. As she reached the door to the kitchen, the flicker ignited a sickly light spilling from the back room. Shadows twisted like smoke, both repelling and beckoning. Mommy! A scream. A shriek. Oliver! Sarah lunged, propelled by terror. She thrust open the kitchen door, bracing herself for whatever lay beyond. But the sight that greeted her froze her in place. The kitchen was a grotesque scene. The area around the friars was an unnaturally bright red, a stark contrast to the darkness lurking outside. The floor glistened like wet glass, but the source was too horrible to comprehend. In the center stood her children, Oliver and Ava, their hands stained, faces illuminated with fervor, as if they were draped in the light from a portal to another realm. "Play with us, Mommy." They chimed in unison, eyes wide but devoid of their usual warmth. Instead, there was a hollowness, an emptiness that sent chills racing down her spine. "No, no, no," she gasped, shaking her head as reality twisted. "You have to come back to me." The children giggled again, their laughter echoing unnaturally, every note dripping with something unholy. They raised their arms, pointing behind her. Sarah turned, and in a blinding flash, shadows surged towards her, twisting into a shape she recognized. There he stood. The man with the haunting smile, his grin stretching painfully wide, eyes glowing with an unnatural gleam. "Sarah, join us," he rasped, and his voice coiled around her like a serpent ready to strike. Panic ricocheted inside her mind. The world spun, and something primal set her into motion. She threw her hands up in desperation, scrambling backward toward the door. "Let them go!" she screamed, adrenaline surging as she felt the darkness close in, but as her feet caught on the edge of something slick, she tumbled, skidding helplessly toward the grinning figure. This wasn't just about her children anymore, it was about all of them. She'd become a moth drawn to the flame, completely helpless against the shadowy entity that threatened to devour everything she loved. Then, the room shifted. Everything went dark, and she sensed the man moving closer, feel his icy breath close behind her. What if she didn't escape? What if they never left? As desperation clawed at her, she realized the true horrors were yet to reveal themselves. And within that darkness, a whisper echoed. "It's time for the feast." What had she awakened? The darkness closed in like a living thing, coiling around Sarah's limbs as she lay sprawled on the slick floor. Fear surged through her veins, and her heart raced, pounding against her chest like a caged animal desperate for freedom. She couldn't lose her children, not like this. "Please, please," she cried, the sharpness of her voice breaking through the thick air. Behind her, she could sense the figure materializing, his footsteps soft against the greasy tiles, every sound magnified in the dead air. Mommy. Oliver's voice held an edge of desperation, but it sounded hollow, warped. Ava's giggle echoed next, cold and detached, reverberating off the walls in a way that made her skin crawl. In an instant, she pushed herself upright to face the darkness. Only shadows greeted her, shadows that shifted and morphed like living whispers. And there, glinting like a dagger in the dim light, was the knife, the one that had been sacrificed to the void before her children became entranced by whatever evil lay behind that door. "You're playing a game," her voice trembled. "You have to stop this. We can leave together." The children's eyes, once filled with innocence, now stared into nothingness. They stepped closer, their sticky hands reaching out like vines. "Join us, Mommy," they sang, the chorus eerie and haunting, as if they belonged to a deeper darkness. No. With a surge of defiance, she pushed through the terror, stumbling backward until her hand collided with the counter, then grasped the knife. A strange clarity pierced the fog of fear. She couldn't abandon this fight. Get away from my children. She swung the knife in front of her, but the laughter intensified, filling the kitchen until it felt like the air was strangling her. The man lurked just at the edge of her vision, a shifting form constantly eluding the center of her focus. Such bravado. He hissed, his voice oily, slithering through the air. Do you really believe you can take them back? Every ounce of resolve was shaken. The shadows around her whispered secrets, taunts echoing in her mind. She felt the pull, the call of the void wrapping around her heart like a vice. Oliver. Ava. Fight it. She screamed, desperate for a flicker of recognition in their wide, unfocused eyes. As if she had triggered something, the children stopped, momentarily hesitant. In that fractured second, a flicker of something fear crossed their faces. But then it was gone, replaced by that dreadful, unnatural giggle. Mommy, we love it here. Oliver proclaimed, and a shiver ran down Sarah's spine. No. She lunged forward, swinging the knife with all her strength, aiming toward the shadows, toward the sinister laughter. But the man danced away, his grin vast and mocking, the light dimming around him. Come, taste the feast, he taunted, his fingers beckoning like vines pulling her into the dark. Then a rumbling sound echoed across the diner, an animalistic growl that seemed to respond to her fury. With every second, the shadows thickened, humid and oppressive, clawing at her sanity. Desperation filled her as she faced the twisted shadow that felt more substantial than air. I want to let you take them. But would her resolve be enough against the primal force rising from the depths? The laughter crescendoed, the man's form flickering as if the very fabric of the world were tearing. Tremors shot through the room, and she felt rather than saw the walls around her beginning to pulse as if alive. In that moment, she realized answering the question the darkness posed every second: this wasn't just about her children. Walls warped and twisted around her, shapes emerging from the dimness, whispering echoes of lost souls hungry for something she couldn't comprehend. What would she have to sacrifice to escape this nightmare? As the world around her began to shatter, the man's laughter filled the air, blending with the screams of her children, brushing the edge of her sanity. And then everything exploded into darkness. What haunting choice loomed just ahead? The moment the darkness engulfed her, Sarah felt weightless, as if she were floating in an abyss. She couldn't find her breath. Panic seized her throat, choking back her screams. In the depths of her mind, a whisper echoed, this was the end. But the urge to fight pulsed within her, igniting a fire in the depths of her fear. Emerging from that void, she grasped the knife tighter, feeling its cold handle against her clammy palm. I'll do whatever it takes. She shouted into the darkness, her voice unsteady but determined. The shadows danced around her, swirling like a tempest, mocking her resolve. They weren't mere figures but twisted memories of what once was fragments of laughter and innocence swallowed by something unfathomable. Mommy? Ava's voice rang out, soft yet jarring, a fragile echo that carried a weight of despair. Help us. Fight it, baby. Sarah yelled, but there was no fight left in that voice. It reverberated back to her, twisted and forlorn, a reminder of the helplessness that threatened to consume her. She moved forward blindly, her fear drawing her closer to the thickened shadows, her children mere phantoms in a waking nightmare. Join us. Oliver's voice blended into the grotesque laughter of the figure that loomed nearby, an insidious sound that seeped into her soul. It slithered around her, binding her thoughts in suffocating chains. The shadows pulsed, their rhythm erratic and chaotic, feeding off her despair like a beast devouring its prey. Fear clawed at her mind, gripping tight. The knife felt heavy now, a burden more than a weapon. Each step forward felt treacherous, as if the ground might swallow her whole. An icy sweat coated her brow, trickling down the back of her neck as she searched for her children amid a swirling sea of darkness. Mommy can't lose you," she called, each word twisted with struggle. Her voice echoed back to her, as if the very walls were taunting her. The laughter grew louder, a chorus of twisted glee that rattled her bones. Each giggle rang with the timbre of innocence but turned cruel through the fog of evil surrounding her. "See how happy we are," Ava purred, stepping closer, her eyes glinting unnaturally. "You would love it here too. Stay back." Every instinct screamed at Sarah, a primal fear that pushed her back toward the edge of sanity. With a surge of desperation, she raised the knife once again, its blade glinting ominously in the choking dark. "I'll save you." But as the knife sliced through the darkness, it felt as though she was striking at nothingness. The shadows scattered, morphing and twisting, forming a grotesque face that cackled in delight, a visage that was horrifyingly familiar yet distorted, an amalgamation of her deepest fears. "Do you see what they've become?" the man hissed, inching closer. "Can you still save them?" His words oozed malevolence, and something flickered in her chest. A bitter realization washed over her, this entity thrived on her despair. The moment she hesitated, even for a split second, it would tighten its grip on her children. "Your love is a gift," he whispered, the shadows thickening around his figure. "And love always demands a price." Something shifted within Sarah, a whisper of hope battling against the encroaching darkness. Could love extend beyond sacrifice? The question echoed, twisting with every heartbeat. What could she lose? What could save them? She tightened her grip on the knife, a final, desperate thought flashing in her mind. What if she didn't have to choose at all? As the shadows lunged, a frigid chill swept through the diner, and Sarah felt the knife vibrating in her hand, alive with energy. This was not just a struggle for her children, it was a fight for her own soul. In that moment of clarity, she understood the choice wasn't hers alone to make. But before she could act, the laughter erupted, roaring ferociously, drowning out all thought. As the world around her shimmered and warped, reality felt perilously close to slipping away. What sacrifice awaited her now? What edge of reality would she have to walk to reclaim her family and her sanity? The shadows coiled, ready to strike. The shadows surged forward, twisting and clawing as if intent on dragging Sarah down into the depths of despair. Her heart raced with each thunderous beat, echoing in her ears. The laughter roared around her, a cacophony designed to shatter her resolve. But she gripped the knife tighter, not allowing fear to snuff out the faint light of hope that flickered stubbornly within her. "Leave my children alone," she screamed, pouring all her fury into the words. The shadows trembled, momentarily recoiling as if her defiance had struck a blow. But it was brief. The figure stepped closer, an embodiment of darkness, darkness that smelled of decay and suffocation. "Ah, but they're happier this way," he crooned, his smile cruel. "You see, the lost ones find solace in surrender. In forgetting you know." Sarah gasped, half in disbelief, half in anger. The memory of her children's laughter, pure, untainted, filled her thoughts. She could feel their joy seep into her heart, a stark contrast to the horror surrounding her. "What kind of monster are you?" "Not a monster," he hissed, his voice dripping with a chilling calm. "Just a collector of souls, a harvester of sorrow. And you, Sarah, have so much to give." As he spoke, the shadows twisted around him, forming into a moving mural of haunting scenes, fractured images of children laughing, eyes wide with unfathomable joy, contrasted sharply with scenes of their haunting silence now. Sarah's stomach turned at the sight. They had been dragged into this darkness, and his grip tightened on their very essence. "Find them." The desperation surged in her voice as she stumbled forward, tears brimming in her eyes. "They need me. I will always fight for them." "Fight?" The figure's laughter simmered into a low growl. "What strength do you think you have? You're outnumbered, outmatched." He gestured to the shadows, which loomed larger and more oppressive. "Embrace the truth, Sarah. There's nothing you can do." The shadows lunged again and her instincts kicked in. She slashed wildly with the knife, feeling its weight and sharpness cutting through the air. Each swing brought a flurry of shadowy remnants spilling away, but they were relentless, reforming with a malevolent hunger. But something changed. As her desperation morphed into something fiercer, brighter, she felt her mind aligning with the blade. It pulsed rhythmically, almost alive. A strange warmth coursed through her fingers, igniting a surge of raw energy that blurred the line between survival and sacrifice. "Mommy?" Ava's voice sliced through the chaos like a whisper of light. "Please don't leave us never," Sarah cried. In that echo, she sensed their presence, their love nestled deep within. Her kids needed her. It wasn't just about the knife anymore, it was something deeper, a tether that linked them. She understood the shadows were drawing power from her fear. But when love surged instead, the darkness writhed, uncomfortable, frantic. "See?" The shadow figure sneered, anger flickering across his face. "You're too weak to break free. You've already lost." Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from the knife as Sarah's heart raced. She felt the surge, the bond that thrummed with energy, not just a weapon but an extension of her will. "Let them go. You will not steal my children." With a fierce slash through the dark, a wave rippled outward, a blinding force of light born from her love. The laughter turned to screams, cutting sharply through the shadows as they twisted away. But the figure grinned wider, unfazed. "You think this is the end? We've only just begun." Sarah's breath hitched as his words sank in, a knot of dread coiling tighter in her gut. It didn't end here, and doubt crept back, cold and insidious. What more would he take? What further depths of darkness could he plunge her into? The shadows lunged again, but now it felt different, a battle she had awakened. Would that awakening be enough? What more would it demand from her? As the darkness roared back ferociously, Sarah locked eyes with the figure. "You will not win." But doubt whispered in her ear, twisting the truth. What had she truly unleashed with that strike? What further cost would she have to pay? The shadows surged once more, eager to take, ready to seize everything she held dear. And the real fight, it seemed, was just beginning. The shadows writhed around Sarah, swirling with a fury that threatened to engulf her. Each scream of anguish sent her heart racing, yet a flicker of determination ignited within her. They were not just shadows, they were fragments of her children's stolen innocence. She couldn't let this darkness win. "Enough," she shouted, gripping the knife tighter, the light from its blade illuminating her face like a beacon. Her vision blurred with tears, but she focused through the haze. Each shadow that lunged at her carried whispers, taunting echoes of her children's laughter turned to cries. Just then, a burst of light flared around her. It disoriented the dark tendrils, but the figure it was still there. He stepped through the fading shadows, a dark monolith watching her struggle. "Is this truly your strength?" he mocked, his voice a chilling chant that echoed in the hollow space. The shadows surged behind him like a hungry wave, ready to swallow her whole. "What are you waiting for? Embrace your despair," he hollered, laughter spilling forth, sharp and cutting. Sarah's hands trembled, but she closed her eyes. She could feel it, the warmth of Ava and Max's love wrapping around her like an embrace, a shield against the wickedness before her. "Think, Sarah," she breathed in, letting the scent of the shadows wash over her. It reeked of loss but also of urgency. She turned her focus inward, following the line of connection to her children. She needed to channel that love. As she held the knife aloft, the blade began to hum, vibrating with energy that tapped into her heartbeat. "I will find you," she shouted, grounding her voice in the depths of her soul. "You are with me, and together, we will defeat this darkness." With a fierce determination igniting in her chest, she lunged forward. The knife pierced the air, slicing through the darkness with a renewed force. Light erupted from the blade, illuminating her surroundings in a dazzling display. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in a cacophony of haunting wails. But as the light expanded, so did the figure's smile, twisting into something sinister. "You think you have power," he sneered, unfazed by the brightness. "The joy you cling to will only deepen your pain." Sarah's heart sank. Even as she fought, doubt crawled back into her mind. What if she couldn't hold on to that love? What if it slipped away, leaving her hopeless once more? The shadows lurched forward in waves, grasping at her with clawed hands. Each touch sent chills racing down her spine, tightening around her throat like a vice. She gasped, struggling to maintain her grip on the knife. "You can't defeat what you don't understand," the figure taunted, slinking closer, blending into the darkness that surrounded them. "Your children are already forgotten, lost among the cursed echoes." "No," she screamed, the power of her love breaking through the panic. She slashed the knife through the thick haze, the blade leaving trails of shimmering light in its wake. Those trails burst into luminescent sparks, empowering her resolve. With each swing, she felt a flicker of power push back against the shadows, but the figure wasn't done. He danced amidst the chaos, each of his movements drawing closer, his smile growing wider as he relished her struggle. "Every strike you make, every moment you defy it will cost you, Sarah," he threatened, darkness swirling eagerly around, eager to reclaim what she fought for. "Are you prepared to pay the price?" Fear sank deeper into her bones, the weight of uncertainty heavy upon her. She needed to hold on for Ava and Max, for their love. But what if defending them meant losing herself to the shadows that whispered promises of despair? And then, from within the murmur of darkness, a faint echo of her children's laughter trickled through, a delicate promise, somehow still alive. "Mom!" The call pulled at her heart like a fishing line tugging against the current. It was her reason, her anchor. Could she wield that love as her true weapon? Could she turn the tide? The figure's laughter grew louder, twisting through the air with a malicious delight. She locked eyes with him, unyielding. "I will not lose to you," she declared. But the shadows would not relent. They surged forward once more, and the question hung heavy in the air: how deep was she willing to go to save them? The darkness writhed closer, eager to swallow her whole, and her hands trembled with a realization she was just beginning to navigate a perilous path where the very essence of her strength would be tested. What was hidden within the shadows, waiting to strike when the moment was right? The shadows lunged forward, claws outstretched, reaching for Sarah with a ravenous hunger. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing the desperate thrum of her resolve. The laughter of her children whispered softly in her mind, infusing her with warmth even as the darkness threatened to chill her to the bone. "Stay strong," she whispered to herself like a mantra, forcing herself to slice through the oncoming waves of despair. Another wave of shadows crashed into her, disorienting her senses. They pressed against her skin like ice, clawing to draw her away from the faint flicker of light still clinging to the knife. She staggered back, gasping for breath, terror clawing its way up her throat. "Mom! Help us!" The voice was clearer now, more urgent, echoing through the gauzy darkness. Sarah felt it pierce through the fear, reigniting her determination. She couldn't let the shadows drown them out. They needed her. That thought erupted like molten fire in her veins. With renewed vigor, she swung the knife again, desperate to create a sanctuary of light around her. The blade shimmered, cutting into the darkness, and each strike seemed to rip a piece from the looming figure who faced her. His smile faltered, morphing into a snarl. "Foolish woman!" he growled, his voice now a serpent's hiss. "You cannot protect them. They are mere memories, mere shadows of who they once were." "No!" she shouted back, each word crystal clear, laced with an urgency that drowned out his taunts. "They're alive. I can feel them in my heart." As she pierced the air again, the blade absorbed her despair, transforming it into blinding light that momentarily repelled the shadows. For a fleeting moment, Sarah saw beyond the darkness, flashes of her children, Ava with her golden curls, Max's shining smile. But then, that moment shattered. The figure's laughter returned, stronger than ever, mingling with the cries of the shadows swirling around her. The laughter filled the void, smothering her brief glimpse of hope. Every moment you gain, I will reclaim. He lunged forward, a dark wave crashing into Sarah. Her back hit a cold stone wall, its surface slick with something vile. The shadows poured over her, sliding down her arms, wrapping around her like the tendrils of a nightmare. Give in. He urged, his voice dripping with malicious pleasure. Embrace the despair. Join them. Struggling against the suffocating darkness, Sarah squeezed her eyes shut. She thought of her children, recalled the hugs, the laughter, the safety of home. In her heart, she felt them, lighter than air, whispering memories that fueled her resolve. In a surge of defiance, she raised the knife again, drawing on the love that anchored her to their shared essence. You can't take them from me. She roared. The knife erupted in blinding light, casting her surroundings in a brilliant glow that pushed the shadows back, if only momentarily, but the figure was relentless. As darkness ebbed and flowed, he circled her, his shadowy form flickering in and out, a predator testing the resolve of its prey. How much longer can you hold that light? He hissed, closing the distance once more. How long until your heart gives way? The knife pulsed in her hand, the light dimming gradually, her strength draining with each question, each syllable. Sarah, he whispered her name, soft and inviting, filled with promises of freedom from the fight. Was he right? What if her love wasn't enough? What if? Trembling already? He sneered, sensing her falter. You see, love is an illusion. The truth is it hurts. Terror gripped her anew. Her arms felt heavy, the knife seeming to draw her even deeper into despair. And for a split second, she wavered. But just then, a burst of laughter echoed around her, clearer and more fervent than before. Mom! We're here. The words surged through her, igniting a flame she thought had flickered out. They were here. Her heart soared as the shadows began to recede, their presence weakening under the power of her refusal to surrender, but as the figure snarled and the shadows crashed against her again. She knew this was just the beginning. The fight was far from over. As darkness coiled around her and her strength waned, she faced him with a steely gaze filled with unwavering resolve. You don't know who you're dealing with, she growled. And in that moment, deep within the shadows, something shifted. A flicker of dread danced within her, a question lingering at the edge of her mind. As the shadows continued to writhe, what would she discover if she pushed past the brink of her own fear? Sarah stood at the edge of the abyss, shadows swirling around her like a raging storm, but as her heart pounded, a fierce determination pulsed through her veins. Fear tangled with resolve, pushing her forward, reminding her what was at stake. You can't have them. She screamed, her voice ringing out above the cacophony of dark laughter. The knife in her grip thrummed, alive with the energy of her love for Ava and Oliver. That love ignited within her, a flame that cast shadows aside and illuminated the grotesque figure before her. Fear morphed into fury as she charged, brandishing the knife as if it were the very essence of her spirit. I will save my children. Light burst from the blade in blinding waves, spilling like golden sunshine against the oppressive darkness. Each slice carved through the shadows, sending them howling back, momentarily scattering the evil that had clung to her family like a parasite. The man's form faltered, grotesque features twisted into rage. You think you've won? He screeched, but his voice cracked, and Sarah felt emboldened. No. I've just begun. You can't break a mother's heart. She roared, pushing through the dark storm that threatened to drown her. Each step was a painful reminder of her determination, grounding her in purpose. The shadows continued to twitch and writhe at her feet, every scream that echoed across the room feeding her strength. Sarah, a small voice piped up, tender yet haunting. It was Ava. We need you, Mommy. The sound tore through the haze, piercing into the depths of her soul. I'm coming. She shouted, her resolve doubling as she fought against the icy tendrils creeping around her legs. The knife surged with energy, and she felt it resonate with her heart, each beat guiding her closer to her children. Her focus sharpened, the darkness swirling around her began to wane in the face of her love's blazing light. "Join us!" The figure lashed out, shadows churning with a malignant fury, but she was undaunted. With each swing of the knife, trails of light erupted, revealing flickers of her children's smiles through the chaos visions of innocence. They were trapped, but they were not lost. Every movement connected them further, a lifeline pulling them closer together. "No more!" she bellowed, anguish lacing her words. "You don't get to take my family." With a last, defiant cry, Sarah plunged the knife deep into the ground, unleashing a spiral of radiance that erupted like a supernova. The light spread, illuminating the darkness that had clung so tightly, its glitter glimmering like stars reborn from despair. The figure shrieked as the shadows recoiled, his form flickering violently. "No! You can't!" But his words were drowned out by the brilliance emanating from the knife, shining brighter than the depths of the darkest night. "Get away from my children!" Sarah shouted, her voice fierce and unyielding. In an awe-inspiring flash, the light expanded, engulfing everything. The shadows howled, twisting and swirling before collapsing into nothingness, disappearing into the ether. For a moment, she felt nothing but the comforting haze of love surrounding her. As the glow faded, there in the center stood her children, Oliver and Ava, their innocent faces alight with warmth, their spirits untouched by the horrors that had threatened to consume them. They rushed toward her, and Sarah scooped them tightly into her arms. Their laughter melted the remnants of fear still clinging to her. "Mommy!" they shouted in unison, beaming. "We knew you'd find us." She held them close, tears streaming down her cheeks, a mixture of relief and overwhelming love washing over her. "I will always find you." Always. The warmth enveloped them, casting away the shadows of doubt. As the remnants of darkness faded into the distance, Sarah ushered her children toward the door. It swung open, revealing a fresh dawn breaking over Maplewood. Light poured through like a promise, filling the air with new warmth and hope. There was a softness around them, like a safe blanket, a peaceful conclusion to the chaos they had just survived. "Let us go home," she whispered, guiding them forward. Together, they stepped beyond the haunted diner, leaving behind the nightmares that once gripped them, into a world that once again felt alive and full of infinite possibilities. The sun rose over the horizon, bathing everything in gold. As they reached the street, Sarah's heart swelled with gratitude, a weight lifted from her spirit. She turned back once, just to see the restaurant fading into the distance, a relic of their past, now powerless against the light of love that guided them forward. And so, as they walked hand in hand, the promise of safety renewed in their hearts, Sarah knew that while darkness might always linger in the corners, love would always be their greatest strength, the fire that cleared the shadows. Together they embraced the dawn, each day stretching into hope, a reminder that love can conquer even the deepest horrors. Don't miss a moment of magic. You need to subscribe now. Smash the like button to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your theories and reactions about this epic conclusion. And don't wait even one more second, instantly share this video with 5 friends who need a glimpse into this exhilarating tale. Your support is vital, and only true fans understand its importance.